What's your weird confession? One time I was jerking it when my doorbell rang. I got decent and answered the door. It was two friends stopping by to say hi. One of them reached out to shake my hand, and he reached for the hand I was beating it with. I was mortified and stared at his hand for a second. The look on both their faces was clear. They thought I was disgusted with shaking his hand. He's a big black guy BTW, and I'm white. I was too socially awkward to just say, "Dude, you caught me on a solo afternoon delight mission, and you really don't want to shake my hand," so instead I shook his hand with as little effort as possible, and then never talked to him again out of sheer embarrassment. I'm certain he thinks I'm a massive racist. When I was 6, I scribbled on the sides of the keys of the family piano. Like I took a marker, pressed a key down, and then scribbled on the sides of the keys on each side of the key I was holding down. You could only see it when the keys were pressed. I did that on like 6 keys in different colors before getting bored and also realizing exactly what I was doing. I still have no idea why I decided to do that. It got discovered. I blamed my 4-year-old brother with the logic that I, at 6, loved the piano, was taking lessons, would never scribble on something so precious. Also, I conveniently left the markers on the floor of his room. He got spanked. I didn't feel guilty at the time, probably because he'd been annoying me somehow, and I still feel weirdly guilty about that. I'm in my 40s, I've never admitted this to my family. My boyfriend and I both lived with our parents and had nowhere to have sex. So we snuck into my brother's apartment through a window when I knew he was at work a couple times and had sex on his couch. A few weeks later, I was hanging with my brother, and he was spooked because he could tell someone had been in his apartment. I didn't tell him it was me. I just let him be creeped out. That was many years ago, but I still feel guilty about not fessing up. I've always been weirdly uncomfortable with eye contact. I can't ever seem to look someone in the eye for more than a second before my brain makes me look away. So when I first started high school and my boobs really began growing, I noticed that boys were starting to look at them instead of my face. My friends would always make fun of being annoyed by guys staring at their chests all the time, but I was always sort of relieved when it happened because it meant I didn't have to worry about keeping uncomfortable eye contact. It took me a while to realize I was the only weirdo on the planet thinking, "Oh, good, he's staring at my breasts. I can relax for a second. I should probably make a throwaway for this," but my father is a diagnosed narcissist and overall horrible person. My mother, my siblings, and I lived for years in a very abusive environment that I don't know if we will ever fully recover from. About 5 years ago, hit the fan with him, and he left my mother for his much younger secretary. He told me before he told her and expected me to inform her he was leaving. He also left her with a ton of his debt. I began the process of removing him from my life. One night, after maybe one too many glasses of wine, I was feeling particularly angry about all the years of my family had to deal with because of him. So I posted his phone number on Craigslist and a message implying he was a chick looking for a good time. I later got an email from his secretary, the one he had run off with, through the anonymous Craigslist system out who she assumed was a random Craigslist poster for posting the wrong phone number. In kindergarten, we were playing Heads Up 7 Up. The whole class would have their heads down and 7 people would go out and tap someone. If you get tapped, then you have to guess who taped you. So when it's my turn, I pick one of my good friends. He looks straight at me and says, "It was you." So as I'm walking back to my seat, he whispers to me, "I cheated and looked at your shoes." No, I never told I'm not a snitch. Yes, I'm still mad. Me and my friends ran a business where we'd sell hentai. But the way people ordered it was weird. They'd drop a slip me or my friends, gave them into my locker. That slip contained information like what they wanted and their locker number, and we'd draw what they wanted. And happy time for them, money time for us. The thing is, we'd act like secret spies and stuff. Like we each had code names and we called it the face. There's this old, drunk, crude, kinda gross guy at the bar, and I just wanna get all up in his gross. I don't know, it's weird. I've always gone for young, slim, muscular, good-looking guys, but this guy, he's just so unattractive and weird, and I want to fully climb inside his. It's so easy to see beautiful, seemingly perfect people, hop in bed, have whatever sex, yada yada, but to see something truly unappealing, so mysterious, so unusual, so special, exclamation, it's like seeing a rare, exotic bird and wanting to it. About 16 years ago, I was a biology major and pre-med student in college. Unfortunately, I was also in a crosswalk at the same time as a delivery van speeding to beat a red light. I was severely injured and lost consciousness for 2 weeks. While I was in the coma, I had an extremely vivid dream. I dreamed I was living in a fantastic jungle populated entirely by giant insects, and the only way I could survive was by crafting a knife and a spear, and then hunting massive armored beetles the size of school buses with horns and spikes, and turning their shells into wicked cool-looking RPG fantasy armor. Taking down giant blue and purple moths, and turning them into hang gliders to explore the world. Climbing up inside giant hollow trees to hunt glowing scorpions. It was like every open-world RPG I'd ever played, except a million times more chromatic and epic, and I knew I was actually there. Not in a computer game. Subjectively, there was no day-night cycle, but it felt like I spent about a month in that amazing, colorful world. Then, all of a sudden, there was a bright white light, and I woke up alone in my hospital bed, and I just lay there dazed, confused, and in a massive amount of pain. I could vaguely remember my dream, but not any of the details or the excitement. I think that the shock of waking up out of my coma temporarily drove the specifics of the dream from my memory. A nurse wandered by a few minutes later and called my doctor to report that I'd regained awareness, and she explained that there had been an accident. I had been out for 2 weeks, and that I'd broken 3 bones in my arms and legs, as well as fractured my collarbone, and had a nasty crack to the head. I was told that if all went well and I committed to physical therapy, I would need about 5 months to fully regain my mobility. My family's lawyer had driven out from Rhode Island to deal with the van driver's insurance company, who more or less settled without argument after seeing the dashcam video. Hospital physical therapy started out as being painful and boring, until they decided I was recovered enough to return to my apartment near campus, start going back to class, and do my therapy at the very good physical therapy teaching program on campus. I was paired with a tiny little student therapist girl whose area of focus was using martial arts techniques to teach patients to recover balance and strength. She herself was a naginata, a sort of Asian spear with a hooked blade, competitor, while I should mention that the closest I'd ever been to a fight was playing sweeper on my high school soccer team. At about the 4-month therapy mark, she brought out a pair of padded poles and said we were going to try introductory naginata practice to help me coordinate moving my upper and lower body. So she started showing me some of the basic cuts and blocks, and it wasn't much different than other aspects of therapy I'd tried before. She said I was her first test case for sports therapy, and that not only was I regaining my balance well, I was picking up the technique like natural. 2 weeks later, we were practicing for real. At least I was trying for real. It was probably way below her skill level. I cut sideways at her shin, and she blocked my pole and flipped it up, right out of my hands, and thrust at my throat guard. In that moment, I had an instant flashback where I recalled, for the first time my entire coma dream, every fight with a giant insect or a spider, every move, counter, and strike. I twisted down and sideways, and the blade end of her weapon slipped past my face mask by half an inch. I grabbed it, pulled it straight out of her grip, and struck her straight back into her helmet with the butt end. She stared at me and asked me where the hell that move had came from. I just sat down and started crying. I remember the whole adventure in clear detail for the first time, and what an experience it was. Imagine going on vacation to somewhere more amazing than any place you ever thought could possibly exist, and then coming back to the world and your boring job and boring life. Only a million times worse than that. Never went back to therapy, talked to that girl, or tried any other martial art ever again. Even the thought of doing any of that instantly brings back the one time in my life when I actually felt like I belonged in a place meant for me. A perfect, amazing place, even if that place was entirely inside my brain, inside a shattered body.